Okay, prologue. The Deva. I should have killed you the minute you walked in here, drawled King Bessian of Jessame. The Deva sauntered over to the chair on the other side of the king's desk and sank into the plush cushions before responding. You've had plenty of chances to kill me over the years, Bessian, and yet here I am. I thought for sure when you banished me after your wife's death that would be the last I'd hear from you. Pray tell, what drove you to call on me after nearly 3 decades? They sat back in the seat, waiting for his answer. Bessian the Conqueror was a hard and unforgiving man. It had pleasantly surprised the Deva to receive a summons from the king of this embittered and war-torn land. In their youth, the two had been close. The Deva had been instrumental in Bessian's strategic marriage and his conquering of the northern territories. They often mourned the loss of those early, bloodthirsty days. Well, that upstart in the Black City, Angerona, what's his name? Adric? He's still calling himself King of Thieves? The Deva felt a sneer of derision cross their face at the mention of their enemy. Of the western half, anyway. Indeed, he said, acknowledging that the Deva ruled the eastern half of Jesseme's criminal underworld. Indeed, I've had enough of his posturing. He's an arrogant, irreverent, and spoiled child. He cut off, as if trying to rein in his more virulent emotions. I won't disagree with you, Majesty. Go on. The formality in their voice and the subtle flash of red that lit up the crimson glyphs on their arms told the king he might be better off getting to the point. The Deva already knew all of these things about Adric, and had no interest in sitting around complaining about him. Bessian always had a tendency to stick his nose where it wasn't wanted. His subjects faced some serious neglect, and the king spewed vitriol about a 20-something common thief. I want the boy dead. That's it? Well, not entirely. Of course not. I want him discredited, and his empire torn apart. I can't have a commoner, a half-breed no less, thinking he is on equal footing with me. It will give people ideas, and we've only just stifled the Northern Rebellion. The Deva studied the king for a moment, choosing to ignore the racial slur against the people of which they were a full-blooded member, before asking, When do you want to start? Soon, he replied, eyes simmering with malice and a touch of madness. Before we start the royal progress, by the time we reach Angerona, I want him ground to dust. The Deva smiled. There weren't many people who felt free to express themselves as such in front of them, but Bessian had always been dear to them. Besides, why deny the man when their desires were one and the same? Very well. I expect the proper payment and reinstatement in your court after the deed is complete. Done. And on to Chapter 1, titled Adric. 4 months later, Adric was sprawled sideways across the arms of his ebony throne. It was a beautifully carved stone seat that he liked to think was as grand as the one that tyrant who called himself king sat on down in the capital. The Stark room was currently empty, except for him. His sister had dubbed it the Vault when it became his base of operations. Iron brackets were bolted to the wall and held torches burning with steady blue flame. The only furniture in the room was a round obsidian table and 4 chairs, including the one he currently draped himself across. His long, jet-black hair nearly brushed the cold floor, and his eyes closed in utter exhaustion as he daydreamed. He would be the last to admit it, but after expending the amount of power he had in the last few months, fine lines had started to appear around his eyes and mouth. He was none too happy with the physical toll, but couldn't discount the fruits of his labor. After months of hard work, the final piece of his plan had fallen into place. All that was left was to set it in motion. He opened an ice blue eye at the sound of the lift grinding to a halt outside the door. A simple flex of the powers that were his birthright would have told him who was about to enter the room, but he was unable to summon the energy. The markings on his arms merely flickered blue before fading back to black. He was by no means helpless, being just as deadly with his bare hands as he was with a spell. But only 4 people alive could even access this room, including him. If they meant him harm, he was well and truly fucked. I guess the key is complete, then. His twin's voice interrupted the peaceful musings on his own excellence, and he groaned as he sat up. You look like shit. Adrian grinned as he took the seat to Adric's right. Yes, it took more effort than I initially thought, but it should be able to get you in anywhere. I have to say, it's probably my finest work to date. He smirked and watched Adrian's cobalt eyes roll. Apart from the slight difference in their eye color and the scars they'd accumulated over the years, Adric and Adrian were identical in every way. Tall, with broad shoulders and jet black hair. The young men commanded attention wherever they went. Their father used to say that they were too pretty to make it very far in the criminal underworld. Of course, that was right before Adric had battled him to the death for the title of Rogue. Adric won, gaining him the title and a fresh scar over his right eye, while their father gained a new home, 6 feet under the cracked and barren ground outside this forsaken city. And that is all Lainey gave me to read. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is fantastic. I'm already intrigued.